Finishing your test of Vav. Let's recap what we learned last week. The Bayer is one of the Lamites Malachas, one of the 39 Malachas. They were Bayer in the Mishkan. They used to separate the good from the bad when it came to the samamanim, the dyes that were used to dye the curtains and the drapings in the Mishkan. Now, the good is called oichel, the bad is called psoilus, and separating it in a manner of a malacha, derech malacha, in a way that the work is done, is considered an iser. However, if one does it in derech achila, the manner that one normally eats, it wouldn't be aser. Therefore, when one has a mixture, a pile of oichel and psoilus, good and bad, one needs to separate the good from the bad, and not the bad from the good. Because that's normally how one eats. However, when one does a malacha, one wants to separate a pile and clean it from the parts which are no good, he usually removes, with his hands, he takes the psoilus away. Takes the bad parts away. That's derech malacha. Let's say you have a pile of food you want to eat, and there's some pieces that you don't want to eat, they're no good. Or some peels or something else. So what do you usually do? You take away what you don't want. Mm-hmm. However, if you're eating, when you eat, you don't take what you don't eat. You take what you want to eat and you put it in your mouth. Mm-hmm. So that's okay to take oichel from psoilus. The reverse, taking psoilus from oichel, is always us.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How about if you're having a piece of chicken and there are bones on the chicken, are you permitted to take off the bones?
Very good question. Just before we get to your question, a few more things that we mentioned last week. Another thing, besides for what, so one condition in Bayer is always take the oichel from the psoilus, not the psoilus from the oichel. Another condition in Bayer is it has to be done miyad, immediately, for immediate use. That you're having a meal right now, or you're in the middle of a meal. However, someone's a few hours before a meal to get prepared, you're not supposed to do that, because that's a derech malacha. That's not the way you eat. When you're ready for your meal, you prepare your meal. Doing something for a long period of time is considered the normal way you do something when you're doing the malacha by your trying to separate piles.
It's all this in Shabbat.
Yeah, only on Shabbat. And Bayer on Yom Tif is different, and it's much more, very, very lenient. Malachas of Bayer on Yom Tif.
Because you're allowed to cook in Yom Tif.
Right, you're allowed to cook. So you're allowed to also do most forms of Bayer you're allowed to do. Mm-hmm. So it has to be done for immediate use. It's called la'alter or called miyad. Another thing has to be done biyad, with your hand, not with a keli. If you do it with a special instrument that helps you, like a siever, a sifter, that it's usher with a keli, or with a funnel, it's all usher, because that is the way how no one sits to a meal and starts sifting. That is what you do as a form of labor, a form of work, when you want to separate piles.
How about with the fork?
So the fork is really just your hand. You don't want to get your hands dirty. Used to be, before the advent of forks and spoons, people would just eat with their hands. But we want to be cultured people, so we don't want to put our hands in, or get it dirty. So we use forks and spoons and knives. So that's not considered a keli.
They don't used to have forks years ago. They used to eat with the hand, the chicken and everything.
Right.
They didn't have any forks. Something new.
Now, so again, the kitzer, you always have to take the oichel from the psoilus. You need to do it miyad, right away, for immediate use, for the meal that's right now before you. And number 3, it needs to be done biyad, with one's hand, not with a keli. Now, last week you mentioned that psoilus min ha-Torah is only something that's unedible. However, what happens if you have, let's say, the outside of lettuce? Sometimes there are these leaves on the on the outside there are leaves they're edible, but they're not the most desirable leaves. They're not a little dirty, whatever. They're not a little rotten, maybe, or something. So what happens if you cut them? You have a whole pile of them. Am I allowed to? It's all edible. So is it okay? Is it to take these away, or this is considered psoilus? So halach is min ha-Torah. It's considered oichel. Midrabanan, it's considered psilus. Midrabanan. So you would not be allowed to take away those things because it's called psilus oichel ayidei hatchak.
So you cannot eat it
Oichel
together.
ayidei hatchak,
You cannot eat
not
it together.
min hatoira, but it's midrabanan.
You cannot eat it.
So what you do is you take the good from the bad. You take the leaves that are the good leaves out from the pile. You don't take out the bad leaves. Midrabanan. It's midrabanan.
But it's ma'us. You're eating the good leaves and you have the bad leaf next to you. It's ma'us.
No, let's say you want to make a salad. So you take out the good leaves and you wash it and you cut it. And you leave the bad leaves on the table, you throw them out. But you can't pull the bad leaves away from the good leaves to clean out your pile. Now, up until now, there is a halacha that even though in general people discuss bayr as ramifications of oichel psilus, edible food and things which are not edible. Parts of it are not edible, the bones, the skin, or maybe the skin's edible, the bones, the peels and other things. However, the reality is that bayr applies also and min haTorah to two different types of foods. Even if they're both 100% edible and good foods, they're both oichel. However, if one you want to eat now and one you don't want to eat now, the one you want to eat now is termed oichel. The one you don't want now, that itself, the very fact that you don't want it now, is machshev, makes it considered as if it's psilus. For example, you have a bunch of apples and oranges mixed together, and you feel you want to eat the oranges now. For the meal now, you're going to serve the guests the oranges, but you have a whole bin in the fridge full of apples and oranges. So you're only allowed to take what you want to eat now. You want to eat the oranges, you can take the oranges out. But you can't remove the apples from the pile to have your pile clean of apples. Because the apples you're not planning on eating now. So that's considered psilus. And that you're chayiv min haTorah if one does that. Now, by lettuce, when we spoke before about lettuce is different. You're not chayiv min haTorah because lettuce reality, it's all one type. The lettuce leaves are all the same. So min haTorah there's no issue of bayr. Because in one min there's no problem of bayr. The bayr is only issue of two minim. Oranges and apples, different types, but all the same. They're all lettuce leaves, just one are dirtier than the others, one aren't as fresh. That's not considered bayr min haTorah. Only midrabanan because it's psilus. If they're both edible, let's say apples, a whole pile of apples, and you want only the big apples. You want to put on the table nice big apples. You don't want to put the small apples. So you can choose whichever way you want. Since they're all one min, they're all one type, they're all apples, the same type of apples. So there's no bayr. The dinei bayr do not apply to one species, one min.
What if you don't eat the first three leaves? Could just get a bus. You just throw them automatically. You don't want to eat them. It's not like bayr. You can say that the first three leaves could be have bugs. You just throw them in. That's also called bayr.
I don't know. Lav dafka. Lav dafka is bayr.
The greenery, like the grass, more green.
Lav dafka. Good question, but lav dafka is bayr. It's all one min. And it's taka 100% edible. Just you don't want to bother checking it. You don't want to bother checking it or something. I don't know. So you're personally self-conscious. It's out of health. Like you just don't like eating it.
Maybe it's not even appealing to you. Aesthetically, it's appealing to you. It's like greenery.
I don't know. I don't know if it's an issue. It's 100% good to eat, and it's just something. And it's all one type. Chod, it shouldn't be an issue. Now, Sivav. Let's look inside now, up until your Chalah, what Mitzvah come to in Siv Tes.
Where are we?
Sivav. Simin Shin Yud Tes.
Shin Yud.
Sivav. The basic answer to your Chalah when you deal with chicken bones is that we don't take the bones out. You're supposed to take the chicken off the bone. You're not supposed to hold. You're supposed to hold the bone. You can hold the bone with your knife or something. Hold it down and pull off the chicken from the bone. You pull off the goods from the bad. That's how you should do it. But if there is no other way to get to the chicken without pulling out the bone, or like let's say by fish or by herring, so we mentioned a little bit last week, there could be different heterim, and Mitzvah Shem will discuss it in Sif Tes. Meanwhile, we're holding Sif Av. Shnei mini dogim, 2 types of fish. Salmon, you have whitefish. Nikroim beis mina oichem. They are considered 2 types of foods. And therefore, Bayer applies Dinei Bayer, and you can only take with your hand the one that you want to eat right now. You're not allowed to prepare for one meal for the next meal. Let's say you're holding in the morning before your Shabbos meal. You say, let me make, I want to prepare my fish. I have a whole bunch of fish mixed together. I want to separate the fish that I want for now and the fish that I want for Shalosh Shudas. Whatever you need for now, for this meal, you could take, because that's what you need for now. That's the oichel what you want for this meal, and you're doing it for this meal, it's la'alter. And you're doing it biyatz, you have all the 3 heterim. However, if I'm preparing now extra and separating it for Shalosh Shudas,
That's no good.
that's no good, because I'm holding now one meal, and you're dealing with another meal.
Interesting.
That's not derech achila. Derech achila is to deal with what you have now. Ella oisa haminsha is.
I've got a quick question. I know you're not allowed to prepare the food. How about setting the table?
You're allowed to set the table and even prepare the food as long as no buyer associated with what
Got it.
no selection.
Okay.
Now, over here the Alter Rebbe brings in, even though, let's say, in the a person, there is a svara to say, the whole concept of bayrer is only applies in the mixture, right? If I have an apple here and an orange here, there's no connection between the two. It's not like when there's a mixture and they're ataroivis, they're ma'uriv together, they're mixed together, and then I separate them, that's when it's considered bayrer.
If you have a selection of mixed nuts and you like to eat the almonds and the cashews.
So if you take the almonds, so you're taking it, you have to take it right now for what you want to eat now, not for later. And let's say you don't want to eat the cashews, you can't take out the cashews. Take out what you want. Very good, Chalah.
How would there be? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So Lamaisa, what happened over here? There is a svar to say by fish. Since fish are usually larger pieces, there is a svar to say maybe because it sticks out and it's big, so there's no bayrer. Even though they're mixed together, but since they're big pieces, maybe the pieces sticks out to me, and it's not like I'm selecting. So one of the Rishonim, the Trumas Hadeshin, Rabbi Yisrael Isserlin, he brought up such a svara, where he felt that maybe by fish, when the pieces are big, maybe there's no concept of bayrer, because it sticks out and you don't have to really separate it. However, he says, he doesn't want to rely on just his own svara, when he's dealing with an ism and a Torah. And therefore one should be machmer. And that's the halacha that we have here. Afapi, middle of the second line above. Afapi shamin shamin echad hen gedoilis. Even one of the types of fish are large. They're larger than the other one. V'nikaris kol achas v'natzi. Each one is independent. And it's possible that there's no bread at all over here. Since this is a doubtful, it's not clear, it's a suffix, you're getting yourself, maybe you're going to be chayav, min Torah, don't do it. It's a svara, we're not saying the svara doesn't apply, but to go rely on that logic to matter something, which is an ism and Torah, we're not going to.
But Safer Brachot Le'akel, no?
There's no brachas here. This is
No
bracha safek bayra.
Broiler.
Yeah,
Lachamir.
that's right. Aval kol shehu min echad. However, anytime you have a one type, like one type of fish, not two types of fish, it's all salmon. Even though you are separating
Big, small.
the bigger ones from the smaller ones, you say, oh, this meal, I don't want to eat the big ones. So you take out all the big salmons out of the pile. It's not called breder at all. Since everything's right to eat. And it's not considered psilus. You're allowed to select in any way you want. Even if you want to select for later on today. He says today you're not allowed to select for tomorrow because you're not allowed to make hachana for after Shabbos. You're not allowed to do anything on Shabbos
For after.
for after Shabbos. You can't prepare on Shabbos or Yom Tov for the next day, for the weekday. You prepare for the weekday for Shabbos or Yom Tov. You don't prepare on Shabbos or Yom Tov for the next day. You don't do things to get ready. Set your table for the next day, or that's why I like commercial. Making your bed. If you're making your bed for the Matzah Shabbos, your bed should be neat. You're preparing for the next day. If you make your bed because you like your room to be neat, because that makes you feel like you're a mensch, or you're expecting a guest or something, you want to make things neat, it's for today. This is how you like your house to look for today, not you're preparing it for tonight. So then, it's okay, because you're not doing hachana. It's nothing to do with bayra, I'm just didn't have hachana. If it's for today, you're allowed. For tomorrow, you're not. So,
I have a
if you're
question.
doing the bayra, and it's one min, one type of fish, even though one piece are big or small, that doesn't make it a separate min. It's all the same type, and there's no bayra, no halachos of a bayra apply to one type. And even though some are big and some are small, so there's a difference between the two of them, it's not called bayra, because they're all the same type of fish. Therefore, even if you separate it, and you take away what you don't want to eat now, I don't want to eat the big fish now, so I'm taking out all the big fish, moving it away. I want to keep my small fish here. If you're doing it, no problem. There's no bayra. Afilu hayu shnei minim, a bigger chiddush. Even if they were two types of fish, you had salmon and whitefish, or bayra mishneim yachad, and from both of them you took out from both piles. You weren't selecting the piles from each other, salmon and the fish. You were selecting them based on size, not on type. If you do it based on size, no problem. You want all the big fish. You want to take out all the big fish from both the salmon and the whitefish, but you're not differentiating whether you want salmon or whitefish. I want both, but I want only small pieces. Since you're not selecting one type from another type, it's not a problem. Your only issue is size. Size is not bayra. Bayra is not about sizes. Good, big or small.
Well, how do we know that you're supposed to differentiate between types if they're both fish? I mean, where's the basis for that? It's like, all right, there are several types
The
of
truth
chicken.
is, there is a machlokes about it, by the way. The Taz, one of the big poskim, holds that even in one type there is bayra. Not only that, he says, Adarabba, it makes, for sure there's bayra by one type. The chiddush is, there's also bayra by two types. And he has a whole opposite logic in bayra. The way he sees the malacha bayra is, he says the closer something is to each other, the more the concept of selecting applies. So he says when you're dealing with one type, it's all apples, all salmon, and you choose amongst them the one you want, one is bigger or smaller, that's where bayra truly applies, because things are very similar, and they're all similar to each other, and you want to differentiate between some of them, that's selecting and bayra. However, the two types, they're different, maybe they're no bayra, he holds is also bayra there, but he holds that the chiddush is that bayra applies also to 2 minim. La halacha, all the poskim basically disagree with the proofs. The Taz brought a number of proofs that the poskim, they each one after another, they answer it up and they say there's no raya, and therefore they feel bayra only applies when there's two types. But if it's all one type, then they're all one type. There's no concept of selecting. They're all the same. Even some are bigger, some are small. That's a size issue, but it's not selecting by type. Yeah, only when you select by type, by minim.
The question is by type. I saw salmon. It's all the same salmon. Some with barbecue sauce, some with duck sauce, some with this. All the same salmon. Are you allowed to take it? It's a
So
boring.
this taka gets complicated. How do we define types? So l'chora in this case, it's
all the same.
Right, but l'chora the sauces differentiate the dish. It becomes a different dish. The paiskim, the prima garden already asked, how do we deal with the sweet apples or the sour apples? They're both apples. You know, and how do we deal? What about challah? You have challah with sprinkles, challah without poppy seeds, whole wheat. But the paiskim are pretty machmer with these shilas, and they hold that all these type of cases are considered a separate min. Except let's say you have two of the same challahs. You have small. You go to the store. You have the same challah. Of a water challah, small, medium, large. The small, medium, large doesn't make a difference because they're all one min. However, if it's one is water challah, one's an egg challah, one's a whole wheat, it's different. It's a different min. It's a different min. It's a different min. So if they have a different taste or they have a different name to them, a different taste or a different name, it's considered two minim. So it leaves us with saying, you know, it has to be the same type of apples, and there are red apples, there are green. Their question is, and one of the Paiskim brings up, what happens if it's just, there's only a difference in color, but the same exact taste. But just the color is different. The color is different. Is that going to be a buyer issue? It's just the color. It's not an issue of taste. It's a color issue. Some are green and some are red grapes. You know, I don't know.
Why do they make it too complicated?
So what do we do?
I want to keep Shabbos nicely.
About the colors, I don't know. But usually, by the way, for the different colors in general, they're different tastes. But in actuality, if you find a case where they're both, if they have the same name, if they have a different name, they're called a different name, like the scientists give them different names.
Sweet and sweetie.
That would also be an issue, even though they have the same taste. It would be considered two minim. However, if they have the same name and they have the same taste, but they have different colors, I would have to look it up. So that's not such a common scenario, but if it comes up, definitely need to look into the svarim in that shayla.
How are the bones handled?
So you hold it, like I said, you hold down the chicken and you take the
No, I'm talking about the fish.
the fish bones.
What about a bottle of wine? You've got wines made up of all kinds of different grapes and combinations. And now you say that there's a very big difference between this kind of Chardonnay and you know.
Combination of Rion.
Yeah,
If it has a different
Sauvignon.
price tag, it's a different.
No, or that you could say, look, I'm going in here. I'm only going to get a $40 bottle. I'm not going to get a $20 bottle, a $10 bottle, or an $80 bottle. Well, that's making a distinction. Yeah, I'm not quite. I haven't.
Right. I hear you. I think the wines are different. The wines are very different. They're made from different things, different types of grapes, and it's a different
You said
quality.
if you have better wine, you make different bracha. If you
I'll tell you
you
about native, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Met Hashem, we're gonna.
Make a tova native after you made a bracha.
After, yeah. Second, like a
after
second
you
bracha.
No, after you tasted the wine. How do you know that it's better than the other one?
People are not so much noig to make a toiva meitiv today, because the halachos are complicated. You have to know the situation when it applies to actually say that toiva meitiv. There's a few conditions. And Merazov is a very big baki in Reches Hanen. Now he's giving a lot of shiurim here, right?
Yeah.
You drink a wine, and Yossi Masa, you know, this wine is $150.
Doesn't matter. What happens if it's...
But you know that it's already
How do you
better.
know? Maybe it's vinegar. You have to first taste it.
You don't pay $150 for vinegar.
Chazaka.
Other wine is $20, $15,
It's
$10.
expensive vinegar.
And they tell you this is Yashan no
Why
shan. This is all.
people buy bottles for hundreds of thousands of dollars and they open it up, they drink it and it's vinegar.
Yeah.
It turned into vinegar.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
A Lafitte
That's what
Rothschild,
I'm saying.
that could happen.
Don't you have to first taste it to make
Yes.
it up out there?
We have to take a look inside.
You could smell it.
Yeah.
Okay, Siv Zayin. Siv Zayin is an interesting case. It doesn't really apply to our beans, but there was a certain type of beans that if you don't cook it with the peel, with its outer, it had like a layer over it, like a peel to it, the beans. If you didn't cook it with the beans, with its shell, with its peel, it would become very bitter. It's specifically through cooking it with its peel. And after you cook it, then you take off the peel and eat it. Otherwise, it wouldn't stay good. So the halacha is that in such a case, we treat the bean, which is called termusin bean, we treat it like that is the psilus, because that would be very bitter. It wouldn't be cooked. So if you take that, that's considered the bad, and the peel that actually helps it taste better is considered the oichel. It's the opposite, the reverse psychology over here. Habayr termusin, mitoich seila shalahem. Someone who removes the termusin from the psilus is chayiv. Meshap seila shalahem amtekes oisam kishayishleku oisam iman. Because their psilus, when it sweetens it, when it's cooked together with them. When we bulade came, not for this, they stay very bitter. The fear, therefore, heim chashuvim psilus, the termus and the beans are considered psilus. Of psilus shem amatekas oisam, and their psilus, their peel, which the peel which sweetens it, is considered oichel. Therefore, if you take out the termus and these beans, nimsa kebayir psilus decheichel, it's like you took psilus decheichel v'chayav, and you're chayav min ha'torah afil bayir b'yadei. Even if you do it with your hands without a keli, kedei lechol miyad, because you had two conditions. That you did it biyadei and la'alter, but you took the psilus from the oichel, which you chayiv. L'maisa, already the earlier poskim say that our beans that we don't have this type of bean, and it doesn't apply this then to our beans. Now, sif chesiv v'chidush. Till now we discussed bayra as it relates to food. What about non-food items? I have a pile of little pieces, and I want to take away what I don't want. Does it apply only to food? Does it apply also to items? To items.
I have different socks. I want to pick up one sock.
Right? I want to do the laundry, right? I want to separate everything. So, what's the halacha? Sifches. Kishem sheyesh iser breida ba'ichlin. Just like there's an iser breida when it comes to food, kach yesh neveshar dvarim. So too there is by other things. Hamuravim im ha'pseilos shalhem, which are mixed up with their pseilos. Or they're not, one of them is psoila, something bad, and the other one's good. They're both good. Like we said before, there are two types, mixtures. One you want now, one you don't want now. The one you want is termed oichel. The one you don't want is termed psoilas. You can have two types of clothing, two types of books maybe, or two small little pieces, you know. You had two types. Let's say you had dishes. Let's say you had, when you washed the dishes, they were sitting all in a mixture together. They weren't separated nicely, the forks and the spoons. It's all one big bucket. So separating it could be an issue.
You can wash in Shabbos.
Let's say before Shabbos it was washed and it was left in a bucket, and now I want to pull it out to set up the table. You want to take out one min from the other, in order to use it. The one you want to use is considered oichel. The other one that you don't want to use, chashiv, is considered psilus. And the halacha is you need to take oichel from psilus. Not the opposite. On boirer, you're supposed to always take the oichel first and not the psilus. Now again, he repeats again, "Af b'she'echem and God mechaveirei v'nikir b'fnei atzmai." Even though one of them is bigger than the other, like we said earlier, it's not an issue of bayr. It's still an issue of bayr, even though one is larger than the other. You also have to not only take what you want to use now, you also have to do it for right away. Like I wrote earlier by two types of foods. For example, I want all the forks right now. We need forks at the table. So I have to take out only the forks. I can't take out all the spoons and the knives and whatever other things are in the kalim are in there in order to be left with my forks. Because I'm taking out what I don't want, and even though I'm doing it right away right now for the meal, la'alter, and I'm doing it with my hands miyah, but I need my third condition of bayr, which is that you're not allowed to take the psoilus from the eichel. Here I'm taking the psoilus what I don't want away from what I do want. Take what you do want. Take the forks. Take fork by fork what you do want to put it to the table. And that you're allowed to do because I'm doing it right now for the meal now.
You have a tray that you have forks here, knife here, spoon here.
And there's no shiloh because there's no mixture.
No mixture.
It's not a mixture. So the whole bayr only applies when there's a mixture. If there's not a mixture, there's no issue.
How about if there's so many silverware that the only way to find the forks is by taking everything out?
So this shiloh goes into the same category as your previous shiloh. You are going l'shitase. Your previous shiloh was that you had with the fish bones, if you can't eat it without taking it out. So l'maisa, the same question we spoke a little bit about last week, let's bring it up again. What about peeling fruit on Shabbos? I can't get to my orange without peeling the fruit. I can't get to my banana without peeling it first. And seemingly I'm taking the psoilus, the bad, from the good. So how do maybe I shouldn't be able to eat a banana on Shabbos? Or an orange?
Yeah.
Or an egg for that matter.
I have onyx Shabbat too.
Egg. I can't eat any eggs? No. It's not also to eat eggs, oranges, or bananas on Shabbos. Or nuts. For example, if I want to crack open nuts. The answer for this is that like this. That it's it's number one, it's mutter to do it. In all these cases, the halach is it's mutter to do it. The question is, and you have to do it right away for the meal now. You can't just peel a bunch of oranges for then. If you're doing it for the meal now, so the issue over here is you took psoilus from eichel. It's permitted. The Shulchan Aruch clearly permits it. The question is, why are the poskim permitting it? What's the reasoning and logic behind it? And over here, poskim discuss and defer as to what's the svara allowing us to take psoilus in this case away from the eichel. One shita is, since it's impossible to get to the fruit without taking away the peel, so that's not considered derech malacha. It's derech achila. That's the way you eat. That's normal. That's the way you eat. It's not bayr. I'm doing bayr here. I'm eating. Someone looks at you and says, "What are you doing?" I'm not selecting. I'm eating. So if there's no other way to do it, it's considered not considered bayr. It's derech achila. That's one mahalach. The same. That's one mahalach. Another mahalach is to possibly explain what the svara behind it is. That anytime something is naturally grows that way. So while the peel or the shell is still attached to the fruit, it doesn't have a status yet of psoilus. It's not only no status of psoilus, it's not even considered two separate minim, two types. It's all one fruit, one type. Only after the peel is removed from the banana, from the orange, from the nut, from the egg, and then we have a pile of shells and peels and fruit, and I want to separate them as bayr. But while the peel is still attached, the sheet of the Maharshal, Medina Rav Shlomo Luria, that the Maharshal held that there's no bayr, because it never have a status of psoilus. It's actually just there to protect the fruit. Hashem made the fruit with a protective coating on it. It grows with a shomer lepri, so it should protect it. Because these are softer fruits, they are protected. Hashem gave it a protection. So l'maisa, there's no Chalah Bayer. So it's two different reasons why peeling or cracking a nut would be permitted. So either way it's mutter. However, there could become certain differences whether you go with this svara or that svara in other situations, not regarding peeling, but in other Bayer situations. Let's say there are two items that one is blocking the other and I have no way to get to the other item without taking away. Let's say I have a pile of the pile of forks are underneath the pile of spoons. So I have a whole bunch of spoons in the bucket, and underneath it are the forks. I need the forks. The only other way to get to the forks is by removing the spoons. So I have no choice over here. So what's my option? So if we go with that mahalach to say that the reason why peeling fruits is mutter is because there is impossible. It's efshar. Balavach is no other way to get to the fruit. So it becomes the normal way of derech achila. So same thing over here. When I have a pile of spoons, I need to get to the forks. I can't get to it. I'm allowed to remove the spoons just like a peel. That's blocking the fruit. However, if I follow the sheet of the marashal, which is the reasoning for why peeling is okay, and because it's naturally grown that way, and they're grown that way, and therefore it's not considered psolos till separate, well, forks and spoons don't grow together. And they're not a package deal.
Not at least in
So you don't have that svara. I mean, the best thing in this case is when someone has such an option, according to all shittas, and just this scenario I'm bringing up, you're having a bucket, spoon forks, is to turn it over and disperse them. And once they're dispersed, you can take out the forks.
Yeah.
So you flip it over. When you have the fruit, you can flip it there today, tomorrow, you can't get to it without peeling off the peels. So, according to the Tzemach Tzedek, says that fish, the herring bones in fish, the small bones are in fish, not the large bones. The large bones, you have to treat them like we do with the chicken bones, where you hold the fish with your knife or with one fork, and the other hand you take away off the bone, you take the fish meat, bring it towards you. That's the oichel from the psolos. That's what should be done on Shabbos. If it's impossible ever, it's not so common today, but they used to have the herring pieces that they used to sell were much bigger pieces, and now herring comes in all different types, and and they make them all in small little tidbits. But they used to be, as I'm sure most of you remember here, there was a lot of they used to be little bones in them.
Yeah.
And I think maybe some of them, the ones they sell in the bigger jars, still have the bones. So the Tzemach Tzedek has a discussion, how do I go about eating it? I don't have any other way. I have no way of taking off the fish off the bones, the little tiny bones. So over here, he is matter based on the sheet of the marshal, that since it's all one, it's all grown that way. And not only that, so Tzedek said it's even better than nuts. Nuts, the shell of the nuts is like sticks out to you. On the other hand, the bones of the fish, the herring, are buried and swallowed up in the fish. They're really one part of the fish. It's all really fish. It's all part of the fish.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore,
whitefish is a big.
if you
bone.
have no way how to do it, so then you're allowed to take out the bones. If you have no other way to do it.
Yeah, whitefish. It's your big bones.
If you can't,
you have to move it.
well, is it possible to hold it down and pull it off?
Very hard.
If you can't, you can.
With nuts, I've seen people, or maybe I'm imagining it, trying to open them with a change, with a shinoi. Would that be necessary?
What I recall is that you're allowed to open up nuts with a regular nutcracker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember that there's an issue with opening nuts. The issue of opening nuts is now this next sif we're going to learn about sif test. The issue of opening nuts comes to another malacha. Now, till now we're learning out the halacha of bayr. Besides the halacha of bayr, sometimes we can come on to another malacha called mefarik.
Called what?
Mefarik.
Uh-huh.
Mefarik is a tilda, a derivative of dash. Dash means threshing. When they used to thresh the wheat, the grain,
yeah.
to get the kernels to pop out from the chaff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was called dash. Mefarik, removing nuts from certain parts of their shells that they're in, can be considered a similar idea where you're removing the nut from the shell,
The husk or something.
the husk, right? And there could be, in certain cases, a shaila mefarik, which is, mefarik means to remove, to mefarek, to remove, piruk, to remove from, like the mitzvah prika, helping someone take off a burden off his donkey, it's called prika. Mefarik means that you're removing the fruit from the psilus, the case that surrounds it and covers it, taking it out and revealing it. It would be a malacha mefarik. So sometimes these cases, besides for bayrer, we have to know the din of mefarik, and that's what we're going to learn now in Siftes.
Mefarik is big pieces, dash is a small pieces. That's in Hebrew. Dash is very, very tiny pieces. Mefarik is bigger pieces.
Okay.
So you can
But it's still a shaila.
apply it.
We're going to see when it's mutter, when it's not. L'maisa, we'll see now.
Is that apply like pistachio or peanut?
That's one of the lamites malachas, dash, the malacha of dash.
Would that include pistachio nuts or peanuts or?
Yeah, some of them could be. It's not, I'll tell you, l'maisa, l'poil, we only consider, the way it's bought in Paiskim says there are 3 layers of peels to a nut. I don't know if it applies to all nuts, but some of the nuts. There are 3 layers. There is an outer layer, a green outer layer to it, which we don't see when it comes to the stores. It's already removed in the farms and the company. We get it with a hard peel, and we have with a very soft, thin peel right around the actual nut. Right? So let's say the peanut has an outer shell of the peanut, and then there is, right on the peanut itself, is a little brown, thin, I'm not sure what it's called, but you remove that layer off.
You could probably eat it. I mean,
According to what it says in Shulchan Aruch, what comes out is that both of those two, the latter 2 levels that are closer to the nut are not issues of mefarik. It's only when you remove it from the green, one, which is all the way surrounding the outside. There's some green shell on the outside, which is usually removed by the companies, by the farms. That level, that layer is considered, I don't know if peanuts have it, but other nuts have it. That's considered mefarik. The reason why only that is mefarik, that's like, if you take that, it's considered like you revealed, you took out something from its shell. Why don't we say the inner shells are considered mefarik? Is a big subject of discussion as to why we see this differentiation in Shulchan Aruch, because Shulchan Aruch does not make clear as to what the reasoning is between this. There is a Tzemach Tzedek who explains that the logic is as follows. He says it's only, mefarik is only shayich when something is attached to the shell, or if it's not attached, the nut is attached to the shell, or if it's not attached, if it's right on top of it. If the shell and the fruit are touching each other. For example, peanuts, let's say, it's not attached in there. It's just sitting in there like in a box. You shake it inside. It's sitting there. They're not totally on top of each other. There's space in between. So the Tzemach Tzedek said that's considered like it's kimunach b'teva. It's like in a box, and opening it is not considered mefarik. It's like opening a drawer and finding something inside. Is that called mefarik? It's just sitting there like in a case. You open a case. Is that called mefarik? Mefarik is only when either it's attached, or even if it's not attached, if they are tzamud, if they're right touching each other. So the green outer shell is actually touching and sitting on top of the hard shell of the nut. So removing that layer, pulling that off, or cracking off just that layer, and revealing inside the nut in its shell is considered mefarik. The lower 2 levels are not an issue mefarik. As well, if someone were to take the nut, even the way it comes off the tree, with that green level on it, the green shell on it, but he would crack it. Instead of peeling it, he would crack it through and through. Take a nut cracker, or maybe with his hands or something, crack the nut. So all 3 layers, two of the layers crack together.
a pistachio, maybe.
Maybe. They crack open together. Then you didn't remove the green layer off of the harder shell. You just crack them all. So you're just cracking them. And then we know Chalah mefarik.
I mean, that would be us.
In this case, it wouldn't be us. No.
Is there any difference between one that grows in the ground like a peanut and one that grows on a tree, like a pistachio.
No.
That skin you say between the peanut, that thing is called a membrane.
Membrane?
And also, so the same thing with a hard-boiled egg on Shabbos. Would that be a problem? Also, if between the shell and the egg, sometimes you see a thin, that also a membrane, a thin skin. If you peel a hard-boiled egg,
Yeah.
Right. I'm just wondering, is the egg attached to the hard shell? Or
do you
sits
ever
in it?
crack a hard-boiled egg?
Nah.
It's not attached, right? Sits there.
So
It's not attached, but l'chora it is one top of the other. But that's really only. It's not grown that way. The answer to egg's not grown that way.
I've seen people.
That's because you cooked it. That's l'chora the answer.
I've seen people make egg salad. On
No,
Shabbos.
we do it on Shabbos. No shiloh. There's
And
no
they
shiloh
take-
mafarak. I'm just
they
thinking
take
what the
the,
reasoning is. The shiloh, but it's not grown that way. This is it's not the way the fruit was grown. You
After
cooked
it's
it.
cooked, yeah.
After it's cooked.
it's
you can
cooked.
grow it. So just a little. This sif over here touches upon mafarik, because we deal with bayra shilos. Mafarik comes in. By the way, the whole ishtar is schita, squeezing on Shabbos. You're not allowed to squeeze
Right.
on Shabbos. Squeeze out liquid from a fruit or from a
Sponge.
towel, sponge, has also to do with the mefarik. Your mefarik, removing the juice, the liquid from the fruit, is also considered a form of mefarik, a form of dash.
Even
we
it's
can
not-
squeeze-
That has a whole siman. The next whole siman, Shin Chav, deals all about squeezing liquids. When is it permitted, when is it not? If you squeeze into a food, not into a food, you take a lemon, you squeeze it in your plate. All the different shilas are dealt with the next siman. This is all about bayra, this siman. Just a little bit in sif test that we're going to learn now. We'll take a look now before Ma'ariv. We'll do sif test. And over here, there's in Yanim and Mefarik in the sif.
So this is the risa.
Yeah. Melacha of Mefarik is the Raisa.
How do you define mefarik in English? How do you say it?
Breaking.
Breaking?
In Hebrew, mefarek,
How is it
is you
spelled?
say, "Ani mefarek lechat atzamot." I'm going to break your bones. They have a statement. I'm going to break your bones.
It
What's
doesn't
the
mean
root?
over here necessarily break. Over here it means to remove.
And what's the
No,
root
in
of that?
Hebrew it
Mefar-
means to
K,
remove
Ra-
it.
Resh K?
To mefarek
Mem
oichel
peresh.
tipsos means to take out the oichel from the psoilos. Doesn't mean to. It means for the word prika. Prika and te'ina. The mitzvah prika and te'ina.
Chamor, yeah.
Yeah, the chamor is
Yeah,
roiv.
chamor
It's tachas masoi. You have to be poetic. The mitzvah prika to help take off
Make
the
it
load.
low,
It's
yeah.
removing. It's different. Sif tes. Ein moil melilis kedakim b'choil. Way it was usually, people that had kernels and they had chaff on the kernels. So how during the week, how would they remove it? They would take it and if they didn't, they do it on a mass scale. You do it with like certain types of
A mill.
mill and different things. Well, the mill grinds it, but they also have to thresh it, right? But let's say you just did it in your house. You were just doing a small amount. Those days, you would just take it in your hands and you rub it, and the food would fall down, the heavy pieces, and then you'd just blow off the chaff, and you would
not
separate the
Well,
chaff
a
from the
berry, a
kernels.
wheat berry. That's really what you're talking about.
It's not butter because just like you're allowed to take off peels,
Right,
this is
like
the peel.
yeah.
but it's a shalom mefarik. Ein moilin melilis kedakim b'chol. You're not allowed to remove the chaff from the kernels like one normally does during the week. What's the normal way you do during the week in your house? Then to rub the kernels in your palms of your hands, that the seed should fall out. Or rather, how should one do it? Moilil b'shinoi. You do it with a shinoi, with a change. Ma'at berashis, but you take the tips of your fingers, not your palms. That's normally the way you do it. Take the tips of your fingers and do it with it. Even with the tips of my fingers, I'm being over on the Isser Mefarik. I'm opening it up. Why is it mutter? Even though you're removing the food, what you want, the kernels, from the chaff, be a dime with your hands. Hey, as he explained earlier in a previous simon, if someone removes the chaff, the fruit from the chaff, the kernels, even with your hands, it's a tulda to malacha min ha'Torah, which is a derivative of the tool of dash with a keli. When you do it with a keli, doing with a keli with a special tool is considered the av malacha. The tool is considered also chayim min ha'Torah. It's learned out from the mishkan, the av, opening with your hands. So why shouldn't this be an issue? Mikol marking still in all, kivin shein mefarak klach hayat kidei lechal alter mutter. Since you're only opening it, you're removing the kernels. Klach hayat with a shinoi, not in the normal manner. You're doing with your fingertips. So the shinoi, you're doing with a change. It's mutter. However, the shaila remains. Ein chanami did it change. However, the halacha is even when one does a malacha, which is termed as klach hayat, the back of your hands, you do it abnormally. Even though min ha'Torah, it's no longer a shaila. However, midrabanan Chazal asked that if you do it abnormally, you will come to do it normally. If you feel comfortable doing it abnormally, you can come to do it normally. So Chazal said, stay away from it, don't do it. So why over here do we say you're allowed to open up, do mefarik, bishinui, klach hayat, to do with the tips of your fingers, seeming it should be asa midrabanan. So explains Alter Rebbe, v'leigazim mishum shem yimlu kedarke. There was no gezeira over here that maybe you will come to opening up the kernels normally. Why? Because even the way it's done during the week, the way they would rub the kernels like this, was also not the regular way. The real way is, when you do it with your hand, is you open it. You open each kernel with your hand. When you rub it like this and the seeds fall down, that is the way you do it normally with a keli. That's why you do it with a utensil, a special tool. That's what happens. That the seeds should go down. But when you're doing it with your hands, usually you open it with your hands. So doing it with your palms is already one shinui. It's one change. It's already not normal. One abnormality. When I go and then I further and I do it with the tip of my fingers, it's like a double shinui. It's called double shinui. It's mutter. There's no gezeda. Even someone who does the way you do during the week with the palms of your hands is also not normal. Ela mefarik klach hayat. It's considered doing the malacha mefarik abnormally. You're not taking the kernels. Mefarik can be removing with your hands. You're just rubbing the kernel and the grain is falling out. The normal way to do that is with a keli, with the proper tool for it. Still, no, even though you're doing it abnormally, to do with your palms of your hand is also b'natoyah. However, if you do it with your fingertips, you did it with another change, like girls, there's no gezerah. Chazal weren't going. However, this is the opinion of majority of Rishonim. The minority opinion, this is also usher. Even with the tips of your fingers is problematic, it's still a problem. And the halacha is that it's better to be machmer for that sheet if you could. Toiv lahachmer for that sheet. Let's take inside. B'yesh machmir, that those that are machmer. Shalei limnel, klal, shibolim, shel tevua. You should not at all remove kernels from a chaff on Shabbos. V'chein sharvitim shel kitnias, taking out certain beans, peas, from their case that they come in. The
shell.
Pod.
The pod, yeah.
People.
Afilu barashes b'oisiv, even with your fingertips. According to these machmirim, you shouldn't be doing all these things because even it's still aser. V'chein, therefore, aser lefarik egoizim luzam egoizim don't take place on the yenei ruka. Therefore, be aser to remove nuts from their green outer shell. Shall gabe haklipa kashava, which are on top of the hard, thick shell. Even if you're doing with the tips of your fingertips, according to the second shita, which is machmir, just like by grains you're not allowed to do it with your fingertips, you wouldn't be allowed to do it by pods, by peas and pods, you wouldn't be allowed to do it by nuts, to take out the green shell, like we explained before, only the green shells of Chalah mefarik. The hard shell, for some reason, not an issue. Like we talked earlier, there's different svaras to explain why not. But toiv la'achmed halacha is better to be machmir not to do this with your, like the sheet, not to do with your fingertips. Why should you be machmer? You have another way out. Since you have another way to do it in a way which is mutter, according to all shitas, choose that path. If you have no choice, you can be make like the first shita. That's the ikar halacha, do with your fingertips. However, if you have another choice, be machmer. What's the other choice? To break it. Break it without opening it. When you peel off the, let's say, the green outer shell, so then I'm doing mefarik with my hands. However, what happens is I take a nutcracker and I break through the shells. I didn't peel it off. No, the green shell is still on top of the hard shell. It's still there. I never removed it. I just cracked. I made a crack. I cracked through the layers. It's not an issue. So therefore, better to be machmir and to crack through it and not to do it with your fingertips. But if you don't have any other choice, doing it with your fingertips is the ikar halacha that you can rely upon, because that's considered a double shinui. Considered a double shinui. Let's just read another 3-4 lines. We're not going to finish the whole sif tonight. How about the membrane underneath that's on top of the peanut or maybe the pistachio or different nuts that have that thin layer underneath the hard klippas? Removing that with your fingers, is that considered mefarik? The Tolda of Dash? He says no. Mutter again, mutter l'shmer, you're allowed to crack the likleif mehen, to peel off the klipa daka, the thin shell peel. Shal gabe hapri, on top of the nut, hachas a klipa kash, which is underneath the thick shell, hanishberes, which you're breaking through. Shein isim mefarik shayach a klipa yoina. The isim mefarik is only on the outer layer, on top of that green layer, which we don't see when it comes to our stores. As well, if on Erev Shabbos you already removed the green outer layer for the nuts, or you removed the outer, the shaft from the nut, from the kernels, the grains, and you're still left with that thin membrane on top of the grain, that's okay to remove it. Because that's just like peeling bananas and oranges and other fruits or eggs. That's an outer, that's considered like a peel. However, Hayois that this is a Shiloh boyer, it's not a Shiloh mefarik. Mefarik is only on that outer layer. Mefarik is only when you're dealing with the shaft or dealing with the green outer shell of nuts. However, the thin membrane around the nut or the kernel is not considered mefarik. The only shiloh over there would be a shiloh boyer, because I'm taking the psilus, the bad, from the good. And the halacha is that we say that you're allowed to take the psilus when there's no other manner possible. You're allowed to take the banana peel away from the banana, the orange peel to get to the orange. The same thing, you're allowed to take it off the grain to get to the grain. You're allowed to take it off the nut to get to the nut.
The shell from the eggs.
And the shell from the eggs. It's only a shiloh boyer, not mefarik, and therefore it has to be done la'alter right before the meal, right before you're eating it, not to be done for some time later in the day. So it's a complicated halachas. I hope it's a little bit clearer. The sif test l'poil is not that much negei l'maisa because we don't really have this issue of mefarik. However, kedai to mention, and next week, hopefully you remind me, we'll get into it about nuts. The Alter Rebbe in his Siddur, which he wrote after Shulchan Aruch, in his Siddur he also included many halachas. He felt it's advisable not to eat nuts on Shabbos. Better not to, as long as if they're still in the shell, because not me'ikar hadin, but because what happens is when you crack open the nuts, usually you just have a whole pile, and it's very difficult to avoid getting to boyer. Like you're gonna inadvertently pull away a shell in order to get to it, and when the peels are still on the shell, on the nut, the shell's on the nut, you're allowed to open it. But once they're separate and there's a pile, there's a mixture, you can come to play around and you're going to get involved in bayr as well. There could be shilas of muksa also. If the shells are totally on the side and they're not touching anymore the nuts, moving them is an issue of muksa. So because of these things, which is very hard to...
How do you avoid that? You're at a shalom zocher. Yeah.
So I tell you the truth that people that know these Hasidic Chabad are always makbid not to eat nuts that are not peeled before because of this siddur. Not that al-pi halach it's aser, but it's better not to get into shilas. But a lot of times it's already peeled, you know.
You see them. Yeah.
What is that they're talking about? If you take the oichel from the soil, then it's no problem.
No problem. Now, the Rebbe just says Hayois is very difficult because it's just a lot of time that you're not thinking b'chal, and you can get mamish the shayla min ha-Torah. Because you're dealing with a shayla min ha-Torah, if you move away the pistachio shell to get to your pistachio, so when it's together and attached, it's okay. We know it's mutter. You're allowed to take peels off, but once they're not attached anymore, and there's a pile over here, and then there could become a shayla muksa once the shells are sitting on the side and there's no nuts amongst them. There's a pile of shells touching with also shayla muksa. So he said it's better not to eat them because you might get into the shaylas. It's not in a chanami. It's not also pi halacha, and if someone's very careful about it, and he's conscious what he's doing, he's not having a big schmooze about who's going to be the president. Then he's probably not really thinking about what he's eating. So then he can get into shaylas of bayra and muksa.
So when you have bones from a fish left over on your plate, do you pick up the plate throughout bones?
Good. So
Or you leave some food on
I'm
the
not
plate?
saying there are heterim to remove muksa items in certain cases when maybe you need the place, and in certain situations there could be ways to remove it, and that has to be dealt with in a muksa shear. But definitely the way you're going to be removing it when you'll be moving it around might just be like pulling it around, might necessarily be with terim of muksa.
Once you did it right, you took the oil from the silos, now the bones are left on your plate.
How should you get rid of it?
Right, so you put a piece of food that's edible in your plate, so then that...
I don't know. I have to look up the din. Again. I don't want to say anything. The ma'asim b'chol yom is we clean our plates and we clean the tables.
Right,
What's the exact?
You'll have leftover bones, right?
Right. The halacha is if it's something which is disturbing you, it's like garbage. You're allowed to remove it because a pile. If maybe it's like one piece, it might not be a problem. But if it's like a pile, yeah, it's most.
Left
Yeah.
over on your plate. I mean,
Yeah, shkoyach Rabbi Vigdor.
We
It said, the
exactly.
Gemara says in Shabbos, in Kufan Beis, that there was an Amira that he ate a certain type of fruit and he took out all the seeds that were inside. And that's actually one of the rayos of Tzemach Tzedek, that like with a herring, that you're allowed to take the bones out if there's no other way to eat it, by taking the fish off the bones. So he says that you see the Amira seemingly opened up this plum, this type of fruit that he was eating, and he took out all the seeds. Maybe it was a cantaloupe, and he put it in a pile in front of him, and and that's how he ate it. The Gemara is actually not discussing bayr. The Gemara is discussing muksa. And the Gemara says that he kept on pulling it out, and he piled it up, and it was a pile. It was disgusting, so it had the status of a graf sharei. It's like garbage, and and once it's disgusting for you, it's a pile. You're allowed to remove it. You're allowed to take the pail out with those days they went to the bathroom in a pail, but they allowed to take it out to empty it because the status of a graf sharei and by muksa were matir to take it out. So the Gemara is bringing it Lagabi that din of muksa that he made a pile of it and he was able to remove it. So Motzadeh brings out from that Gemara that you see on the side that there was no bayr shayla in removing the seeds because seemingly when the seeds are still attached to the fruit and that's the way they were naturally grown. So then that's the sheet of the marshal. Then it's not yet pasoilus until it's totally removed. When you have pasoilus and fruit, they're separated and they're mixed. Then it's a shayla bayr. Still, in all, the Tzemach Tzedek didn't rely on that svara itself. He only relied when there's no other way to get around it. In such a case, you would be allowed to take the bones out from the herring, and let's say for a child, if you have no other way to give him the food, and without taking out the psilus, there's no other manner, and it was grew that way, or it was grew that way, and it was naturally created that way, you'd have this heter.
We're exactly 10, so we have to answer